Alright, so today we're going to answer the question that nobody's asking, which is why I make pour-over coffee on an alcohol stove in my van, or anywhere else for that matter. Now, a warning to you people who are put off by obsessive-compulsive, complicated, long-winded videos might want to go now, because this is going to be one of those. I'm sorry, it just takes some time to do this, and I'm going to show all the steps and everything involved in making the coffee. I'm going to do it as quick as I can, but it still takes about 6 minutes. The reason is because I really like a good cup of coffee, and I want it to taste the same way every time. That's why a lot of people go to these high-priced, expensive coffee shops, because they can count on something consistent. They know they're going to get something the same every time. Well, I don't have the $3, $4, or $5 to spend on a cup of coffee every day, so I have to do that myself and figure out a way of making a consistent cup of coffee. The one thing I don't want to do is pick up my cup, take a sip of my coffee, and go, no. I want to pick up the cup, take a sip of the coffee, and say, oh yeah, that's good. Well, in order to do that, I have to brew the coffee the same way every time, using, of course, the same coffee. Different coffees are going to taste different, but given the same type of coffee, I have to brew it consistently to get it to taste the same way every time I make it. So the first thing is, let's assemble the tools we're going to need for this project. Now, there are some tools, and there are some tools that work better than other tools. So the first one is a method to heat the water. I use a little alcohol stove like the one I gave away, a little pot stand. I use a Melitta 1-cup coffee maker. It's very inexpensive. And the corresponding Melitta No. 2 coffee filters that fit in the Melitta 1-cup coffee filter. So why do I use this setup instead of, for example, a stainless steel cleanable filter that doesn't have any waste materials involved in it? The name of the game here is consistency. Those stainless steel filters will work good, 1, 2, 10, 15 times, but over time, from what I've read, from the reviews that I've read people give, the filters tend to clog up. So that means the consistency of the brew I'm going to get is going to be varied over time. Using a new filter, paper filter each time, I'm going to guarantee myself the greatest chance of successfully brewing a consistent cup of coffee. That's why I use it. And like I said, this is going to be obsessive, so, if you want to go. Then, probably the most important thing is the right kind of pot to heat the water in. Now, look at this, and I looked at him and I laughed. I said, "Oh yeah, that's crazy. I can use a a pan. I don't need this." Well, when you watch the brewing portion of this and the pouring over portion, you'll see why one of these is real important. I had a hard time spending money on this thing, but I'm glad I did, and it really makes the process of making a consistent cup of coffee a whole lot easier. So, let's move along as quick as we can and get to the actual making of the cup of coffee. So, here we go. Okay, so step one we can call preparing the stove. And to do that, we just need to measure a little alcohol into a measuring cup. I have determined that in this stove, when the alcohol reaches the concave section, covers the concave section, there's enough water in here to heat the water to the right temperature. But today, I'll show how much alcohol that involves. It's about 15 milliliters. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that in and check, and yes, it is covering the convex bottom of the stove. So that is preparing the stove. I measure the water into the pitcher using the container the coffee will be going back into. So 16 ounces of water into the pitcher, and that's my measurement for water. It's the same every time because I use the same container every time. The next step is measuring the grind. I'm going to turn a light on here. Yeah, a little better. So I have, people that do this measure coffee by grams. Now what I did was I measured a perfectly level measuring cup full of grounds, and then that amounted to 10 grams. And what coffee makers say you need is 20 grams for the size of cup that I'm using. So 2 of these scoops I measured out using a gram scale, and it came out to be 20 grams. So now I don't need a scale anymore. I can just take the coffee out, get myself a perfectly level measure and pour it in, and know I have consistently 20 grams every time I make a cup of coffee. So that is measuring the coffee. Okay, so this is the real complicated part. This is called heating the water. How do we do that? Well, we light the alcohol and we put the pot on top of the stove, and we wait for the alcohol to run out. Hopefully you can see the nice flame from the alcohol stove. It just fits right at the base of the stove. It kind of licks around a little bit, heating the entire base of the stove and getting that water nice and hot. I've already calculated that the amount of alcohol will get the water temperature to the right temperature by using a thermometer like this and different amounts of alcohol and burn times. I've arrived at a quantity of alcohol that gives me the right temperature of the water. As soon as the alcohol runs out, I'm ready to start pouring. Okay, so the water's hot, and I'm trying to get some light on it. The first pour is called the bloom. It's just designed to get the coffee grounds, the grind of the coffee, wet. That's all we're trying to do, is get them moist. And then we wait till that has a chance to soak through. That's pretty good there. And now we start the pour. And as you can see, we're getting some foam coming up. And that's just what we want to see, because that's letting the gas out of the beans and enabling us to get the full extraction possible out of the coffee. And if you notice, this little pot just trickles water in, and that's what we're trying to do
to keep from disturbing the grounds as much as we can. I know this all sounds real kind of obsessive, but it really turns out being a good cup of coffee, and this is how the pros do it. So, this is making a professional cup of coffee. Like one of those $2, $3, $4, $5 cup of coffee that you buy in the gourmet coffee shops. Looks like we've got all the water. I'm going to check. Yep, that's it for the water. Now it's just a matter of letting it drain through the filter, and we add our cream and sugar if you're so inclined, and we're ready to go. So there we have it, a full cup of coffee. And I'll move that very carefully. And essentially, nothing left but our coffee grounds in a nice pattern at the bottom. So that lets us know that we extracted all of the essence out of the coffee that we possibly could. And now it's just a matter of putting the lid on the mug.
Don't say I didn't warn you. It was obsessive, it was compulsive. But at the end of the day, we got a really great cup of coffee out of the deal. And when I take a sip out of the mug, I'm nodding my head saying, oh yeah, that's good. I'm not going, yeah, it didn't turn out right. So, if I put in all the same ingredients, the same amount each and every time, I should get the same great tasting cup of coffee back out, which is in fact what I get. And that's why I make coffee the pour over method on an alcohol stove, in the van, or anywhere else for that matter. So if this video was helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. And one more very important thing is, as always, comment as you see fit. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, see you later.